Guten Tag and hello, dear guests and ladies and gentlemen on both sides of the Atlantic. I would like to welcome you very much to our first transatlantic video conference as part of the Congress-Bundestag Youth Exchange. For those of you who do not know me, that is probably the case on your side in Washington, D.C. I would like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Theo Fuß. I'm a program director with the Congress-Bundestag Youth Exchange program on the German side, and that as part of the Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit. So I'm very honored to have the opportunity to be here and lead you through this afternoon's program together with my dear friend and colleague Rob Fenstermacher, CEO of Cultural Vistas on the US side. So Rob, I hope you all can see us and me here and hear us. That's okay?
Yeah, everything's working perfectly.
Okay, thank you. Hope that stays that way. Due to the technical opportunities on both sides, we do not have the chance to focus too much on the audience that we have present in Berlin and Washington. So we decided to just briefly introduce who is with us today on each side. I start here in Berlin. We are honored by the presence of some representatives of the Deutsche Bundestag. I actually would have loved to introduce to you two members of the German Bundestag, MdB Dagmar Freitag and Dirk Heidenblut. Both are Patenabgeordnete and pretty much deeply involved with the Congress-Bundestag Youth Exchange in their function as Patenabgeordnete, so as godmothers and fathers. But unfortunately, they had to tell us that they couldn't make it this afternoon. So we have other members with us from the Bundestag administration. I would like to introduce and welcome Michael Reinhold and Frau Jacobs. And they are with the office who is in charge of running the CBYX or PPP, as we call it in Germany, in Berlin. I'd like also, of course, to very much have the honor to introduce to you members of the US Embassy here in Berlin, headed by Tom Miller, Minister Counselor for Public Affairs at the Embassy, Katharina Göllner-Sweet, Fiona Evans, and Bettina. Thank you very much taking the time, your precious time of being here and be part of this afternoon. You told us that you have limited time, at least Tom, so I just briefly let you know that during the course of the afternoon he has to leave. But thanks for taking the time coming here anyway, right? So, of course, I would like to welcome our participants. The five protagonists that will be with us this afternoon. They will introduce themselves later on. And about 20 of the current group of US-American participants here with the 31st program year. Welcome to Berlin. Welcome to this event at the GIZ. So that's our overture from here in Berlin. Rob, I'd like to give you the word, and we are all curious who is with us at your offices in Washington.
Well, great, thanks, Theo. And I think it's, hopefully you can now actually hear me over on the Berlin side. Hello from Washington, D.C. We're really excited that we were all able to get here today. On our side, we had a huge thunderstorm yesterday with a lot of rain and lightning. So we were a little nervous that we might have a power outage or something that would have made this extremely challenging. But we're excited again on our side to be part of the initial pilot project for the CBYX Virtual Exchange. As you mentioned, Teo, I think we're all always a little nervous when you're trying to do a lot of technology, especially when you're doing it international in nature. But we did a lot of testing in advance. I think the exchange with the participants up until now has gone very well, so I'm really confident that today is going to go well as well with everybody over in Berlin. And as we all know, innovation always comes with its set of risks. So let's hope it continues to go well today. In this office, on this side, as you asked, Teo, we're a somewhat smaller group, although I think you can see us on the screen. We have the two views up. We're a little bit smaller group because this week is actually a lot of committee meetings on Capitol Hill, so we had fewer folks who were able to join us. We also do not yet have all of our German CBYX participants here in Washington. They'll be doing their evaluation seminar a little bit later in the year. But we do, of course, have our 5 CBYX participants in the virtual exchange, who, as you mentioned, Teo, will introduce themselves in a moment. We have a number of stakeholders here for the program. We have a number of CBYX alumni who are able to join us today, so we're really excited about that. And we also, as you mentioned, Teo, we also have some guests here that we're happy could join us. From the German Embassy, we have a few colleagues that we work very closely with. We have Karsten Rübke, who's the Culture-Attaché, who's just entered the room and aside. It was perfect timing, as you can see. And his colleague Jan Eckendorf, who's the Deputy Culture-Attaché, and their colleague Jakob Kamenetz. All 3 of them have just been incredibly supportive of the program, and we work very closely with them. From the State Department, we have Shalita Jones, who's in the back of the room. Maybe she can wave. She helps oversee the program, and we work very closely with her. And I can't say enough about the 4 of them and all of the support they give us for this particular project, but the program in general. It's really fabulous to work with all 4 of them. As you mentioned, unfortunately, we didn't have any MDBs who could join us today. We had hoped that we were going to have Congressman Glenn Thompson join us today, who is the co-chair of the Congressional German American Caucus. And unfortunately, because of a scheduling conflict, he wasn't able to join us today and was really disappointed by that. But he did send me a statement that he asked that I read to everybody today on his behalf for the program. So I'm just going to read this off. Good morning, participants of the CBYX Virtual Exchange. Thank you so much for the invitation to speak to you all this morning. I regret that my schedule has prevented me from attending the special event. However, I am most appreciative of the ability to share my words, enthusiasm, and heartfelt optimism regarding our continued relationship. The Congress-Bundestag Youth Exchange is one of the most prominent bilateral exchange programs in the world, which has been in existence for more than 30 years. As co-chair of the bipartisan Congressional German American Caucus, I remain committed to ensuring robust funding for the CBYX program, recognizing the long tradition of the program and mutual benefits for our young learners and mutual interests. Today, I'm very excited about the CBYX's new virtual exchange that allows German and American students participating in the program the opportunity to engage in important discussions on behalf of our country's shared interests. Not too much longer. I'm very excited about the new virtual component, and I know that it will continue to build strong relationships and enhance the dialogue between German and American participants, while increasing the program's visibility to lawmakers and the German-American community. Again, I greatly appreciate the opportunity to provide you with comments today and look forward to continuing our partnership with you as you move forward. Sincerely, Glenn G.T. Thompson, Member of Congress. And again, I can't say enough about his support. In the last few weeks, there have been a number of other individuals, Congressman Charlie Dent, who's the co-chair of the Congressional Study Group, Jim McDermott, a congressman from Seattle, have really gotten very excited about the program and are looking forward to engaging with all of our participants and our organizations as we move forward in the future. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Teo on the Berlin side to give you a quick overview of the particular project of the virtual exchange.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Yes, Rob and I agreed that for the start of this event, I give you a brief account on how it developed. I mentioned, or we mentioned, that today's event is a new feature of the Congress-Bundestag Youth Exchange. And this exchange is one of the leading German-American youth exchanges that we have. And the CBYX, or PPP program, is not only called an exchange, it is really a one-on-one exchange, which means there are an equal number of German and US participants on both sides each year. What is awkward, though, is hardly any of the exchange participants of the same program year, at least, meet their counterparts. So the Germans go and spend a year in the US, and the Americans come to Germany and spend a year here. And then they return, but again, they don't meet. Whom they meet is later on maybe counterparts of later years that they meet here in Germany, or vice versa. So this in mind, Cultural Vistas and us, GIZ, suggested a new program element, a virtual exchange of current German and US CBYX young professional students. The core idea was to select a number of individuals motivated and interested, then encourage them to reflect about some common issues under debate in both German and US societies, and having them to do this by using new technology, social media technology. And based on this core idea, we decided to start a pilot project last December with 3 objectives in mind. See how it works, and if it does, make it in the future an integral part of the program concept. Second, to give it some visibility by allowing those participants to present their reflections and exchange experiences to a larger audience as part of an event, and give this event a transatlantic and political forum. Transatlantic by having a parallel event, both in Germany and the US, and political by inviting congressional and Bundestag members on each side to allow them to get an idea on the views and perceptions of their students at the end of the program stay. Even if the first of these 3 objectives is still underway, we are overall, and I'm from what you said early on, Rob, we agree on this. We are pretty happy on the course of this project so far in general. And we are even more happy and pleased that today the last 2 objectives sort of come reality as well. So that is the background of the project. And I would turn the part over back to you, Rob, to give us some more details on the project itself.
Thanks, Theo. So in developing the concept, we identified 6 or 7 themes that we felt were really of strategic importance to the German-American relationship, and also which were themes that each government has both identified as domestically important or also important for their foreign policy goals. So for purposes of this initial virtual pilot project, we identified or settled on 2 different topics. One, democracy and civil engagement, and the second, integration and diversity. So for democracy and civic engagement, the group examined and compared issues related to political participation, how well people were informed about the political process, volunteerism, community service, and political institutions. The integration and diversity group discussed issues related to immigrant integration, societal acceptance of diversity and sort of understanding what that means for each society, and the government policies that are in place to deal with these various topics. And so we then asked the participants to draw on their personal experiences while they were on the exchange program, asked them to talk with colleagues, with other participants, to then compare and contrast their experiences in the country that they were visiting with their home country, and then to think about with their colleagues on the program a little bit, what are some of the best practices that we could be sharing with one another and between our 2 countries. So we're hoping that now as we get to the presentations, you'll get just a glimpse of some of the dialogue and some of the learning that took place during that process. And I'm about to introduce a colleague who's going to moderate that. We had the great fortune, and I meant to mention that earlier, of cooperating with the American Institute for Contemporary German Studies based here in Washington, D.C., that not only helped us develop the content for the virtual project, but helped moderate the discussions, the online discussions of the 2 groups. And so I want to mention Park Nicholson, who unfortunately couldn't be here today because he has another German-American event that he's moderating this morning. But it was really exciting to get him on board. When we approached him, he got very excited about being involved in the project. He's a Bosch Fellow alum, and so he truly recognizes the importance of these exchanges. And through PARC, we were fortunate to get Eric Mangenbacher, who I'm going to bring up to moderate the discussion, who works at Georgetown University. And again, we were really fortunate to have his expertise that we were able to bring to the program. Eric is an associate teaching professor and director of the Senior Honors Program in the Department of Government, where he teaches courses on comparative politics, political culture, and political films. We discovered today we were both in Germany back in 1999-2000. He was a Fulbright Fellow and also was the Ernst Reuter Fellowship at the Freie Universität in Berlin. He's now currently the managing director of German Politics and Society, which is housed at Georgetown's BMW Center for European Studies. And a little plug for you, he has a new book that I'm not sure if it's actually been published yet, but he can tell you if that in fact has happened. It's called The Merkel Republic, the 2013 Bundestag Election and Its Consequences. So you can see we've got some great expertise here. So without further ado, Eric, I'll bring you up to get the presentations going.
All right.
Okay, Eric, before you start, can we ask you, just for sound reasons, that you talk into the mic a bit closer?
No problem.
Closer to the mic. Yeah, that's better, because sometimes we lose you. Okay?
All right, well, okay.
Thank you.
I think we're all good now. All right, well, thank you for the very kind introduction, and the book will be available in October if you want to buy some copies. It really was my great pleasure to moderate one of the two groups, the Democracy and Civic Participation Group. I'm going to keep this very short right now because we have some very riveting presentations that we will start right away. I think we're going to start with the Democracy and Civic Engagement Group. So without further ado, I will invite our two German participants up here, and we have our American participants in Berlin.
I just start. It's a little bit difficult for us to see if they are standing there too. So I start to introduce myself, and I think we switch around. My name is Nils Koch. I'm from Germany. I'm a German participant. My hometown in Germany is Essen. And how Theo Fuß mentioned at the beginning, we have a partner of the German Bundestag, and my representative is Dirk Heidenblut, who was not able to attend today, but I'm very lucky to have him. And so I would like to give to Germany for introduce our other participants. Hello?
I think they turned it part to you.
Okay, can you hear me? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Nick Johnson. I'm from Spokane, Washington, proud city, and I'm studying here currently in Saarland, in Saarbrücken, the shining metropolis in the south, and I studied green engineering in Seattle University.
Hello, my name is Chris Roman. I'm from Lake Forest in Southern California, and now I live here in Berlin, and I studied political science.
And my name is Therese Rutkowski. I'm from a town in Southern California called La Cañada, and I currently live in Osnabrück in Lower Saxony, Germany. And I studied economics and environmental science. And now Anna will introduce a little bit more about what we talked about during these discussions.
Yes, and my name is Anna. I'm from Hanover in Germany, and I was placed in upstate New York in Utica, and I studied graphic design. And I moved to Bergenfield to New Jersey to work at a publishing house. That's me. Okay, I do the introduction. So good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad to be able to present in front of such a great audience. Thank you so much for coming and for joining. As Eric just mentioned, we are going to talk about democracy and civic engagement in Germany and in the United States. Our group met up on about 2 or 3 virtual exchanges, and we discussed topics like Rob just mentioned. For example, election process in both countries, and the political parties, campaign funding, volunteering, the history and its effects, culture memories, and the attitude of youth towards local and global politics. It was pretty interesting to see how the German participants reacted on that, or how their experiences are, or our experiences in comparison to what they think about our home country. And yeah, finally, we decided to do a survey to reach out to other Germans and Americans to see how what we talked about compares to their opinion. Yeah, we were pretty interested in other perspectives on that issues. So we will talk about that later, about our results. And yeah, that's it for the introduction.
So as Anna said, we talked about a variety of different topics, especially focusing on the perceived ignorance of Americans in regard to political engagement and politics in general, both from the side of what many Germans may have expected when they went to the US, but also what Americans felt was an expectation when they came here as part of CBYX. And it was very interesting both to discuss our perspectives on this issue and see that it wasn't just so simple, but a lot of it was very dependent on the individual's income and educational background, but also to survey and discuss this with our peers and the people we worked with. And from the surveys that we conducted, we didn't see any big difference between the Germans and Americans in terms of how they were engaging in local politics and how they were staying updated and informed. And so now Nils will give some perspective on the political parties and institutions that we discussed.
Yeah, in our survey, we tried to figure out if people in both countries feel represented by their political parties, because in our discussions, we realized that it's very different in the US and here, because in the US, you have just two parties that represent the folk, while in Germany, we have a bunch of different parties, and sometimes there is a new party coming up, another party is leaving, and so it's changing over the time, and so there are more different choices, and we try to figure out if people in both countries feel differently represented by political parties because of this different way of representation. And there we figured out also in our survey that people in Germany feel more represented from the different political parties than in the US. While in both countries, not everyone feels totally represented by their political parties, but more people in Germany agreed that they feel represented. And we concluded that the reason for it is also the two-party system in the US, and maybe that one party sometimes is also divided in two parts here in the US, and maybe it's like more than 4 different parties here in the US sometimes than just 2. But the feeling of representation is different, what we also figured out with our survey in both countries.
Great, I think that's a good point. In the part of the country that I come from, in the Pacific Northwest, I can say that there's a lot of tension on both sides of the political party system, that the people don't feel like the government has the ability to either represent them or affect real change. And I think that plays into quite nicely how the youth choose to engage in politics. So that was one of the topics we touched on a bit, in that since they don't have a lot of hope in the system, they tend to take alternative methods of involvement. Our study found that about half of Americans prefer to use social media as a way of involvement and espousing their political ideas rather than direct involvement. The Germans do too, but not quite to the same extent. And they also use a lot of volunteering as well as protests. So we can see here in Germany, I'm sure a lot of people have seen the TTIP protests or the Atomkraft protests. In the US, there's a lot of grassroots movements like gay marriage and weed legalization that have passed with a lot of youth support recently. And they tend to pick topics that they feel directly relate to them rather than the overall party or political system as a whole. And on that, I think our German counterparts have a little bit about what they might want to take from the American system to bring back. So.
Yeah, while we all 5 Germans in the US had a unique opportunity to have an internship at the Hill. We were placed in different congressman or senator offices and had a 6 weeks internship. We had a good way to figure out how the US government works, how the Congress works, and how everything works together. And what we really liked here, or what I think is very interesting to keep back to Germany, is the way how the how the US Constitution tries to build stability into votings, because House has a 2-year period, the Senate has a 6-year period, and between it, the president was a 4-year voting period. The result is that like short-term mind changes cannot change the political so much how it can happen in some other countries, or how it can happen like in Germany, because after 4 years everything is changing directly, and therefore it's a little bit different. We have in Germany, we have a second house, the Bundesrat too, but I think the American system built a more long-term stability in political decisions.
Yeah, and I want to take back that I realized or experienced that Americans are more open-minded to other cultures and very optimistic. They live their life more stressless, so not as stressful. Yeah, so that's really, and they're not as organized, but it still works. So.
And then from the American perspective, we really actually enjoyed the fact that many Germans were very open to discussing politics, where we felt in the US it was more of a taboo and it was more difficult to have these conversations and challenge where we could see room for improvement. But we were also liked really the array of German political parties and felt that there was a better representation of the issues and the concerns of the people. And so we'd like to see a little bit more of the diversity of parties, but also the idea of cooperation and coalition integrated into the political system as it is in Germany.
So, inspired by these discussions, we decided to create a survey to see if the German and the American publics agree with our perceptions. And we wanted to see maybe a frustration with political parties or a frustration with the governmental system in general was leading to lower levels of political participation. And so the results are quite interesting. We've mapped them out in the infographic that has been printed out and handed out to you. And some of the more revealing answers came when we asked about political parties, as we've been discussing. Many more Americans are party members than Germans, 51% of Americans versus 23% of Germans, because Germans can't seem to find one party they completely agree with, despite the high number of parties that are available to them. But the American non-party members have harsh words for the bipartisan system that exists in the US. Americans called it polarized and limited, and they claimed that the two-party system does not provide enough variety of opinion. Meanwhile, the next question shows that many Germans, 65%, feel that their opinions are represented in the government by one or another political party. Yet, only 22% of Americans feel this way. Maybe America could do with some more political parties. We also asked if respondents were satisfied with how their elected representative was doing his or her job. And once again, we see more dissatisfaction, more frustration from the American side. 52% of Americans said they were dissatisfied with the job that their elected representative are doing. And 25% of Germans said they are dissatisfied with the way that their elected representative is working. So once more dissatisfaction from the Americans. In the second to last question, we asked if the respondent felt that their country's governmental system was well designed or not. The Germans actually had no clear tendency in their answers. They left not that many written comments behind. However, the Americans were overwhelmingly negative and they left lots of written criticisms. 78% of Americans disagreed with the statement that our American governmental system is well designed. As far as written comments, they wrote that the politicians in power are working around the system. They claimed political parties are blocking each other's work, leading to governmental dysfunction, a slow pace of governance. They criticized the role of money in politics, the role of campaign donations, and they claimed that the Constitution is simply too old and outdated. However, there is a good ending. We asked all the respondents if they felt that their individual voice and vote could make a difference, and the majority of both Americans and Germans both agreed. They believe that they can make a difference, and this is a promising sign for all forms of political participation in the future, we think. And here's Therese with a few concluding words.
Yeah, so finally, we just wanted to give some perspective on participating in this exchange. We thought the virtual forum project was actually a really great idea and a really important connection between the German and the American sides. It allowed us to share tips, as some of us were placed in similar areas to our home countries. And it also allowed us to really have these conversations and reflect, and give us people to ask these questions to. So when we want to know why certain things are practiced in Germany in regards to political engagement and civic involvement, it was great to have these discussions as a resource to pose those questions and hear the perspectives of the Germans in the US and vice versa.
Great presentation, and I was extremely impressed with the survey. I think that's really, really, really well done. All right, we have a couple of questions now for the group. So I will just throw it out there, and whoever wants to respond in Berlin or Washington, D.C., please do so. So the first one is that there have been quite a few demonstrations and protest movements in Germany over the last year that are devoted to rather different causes, either for or against a given issue. For example, the storage of atomic waste, new power lines in conjunction with the Energiewende, the global financial system, the Occupy movement, TTIP, Islamization. It's a long list, right? And so the question is, I guess this is particularly for the Americans in Berlin, how have you experienced all of this living in Germany for the last year? Do you think that this is part of German or European democracy, or is it kind of a manifestation of the kinds of political engagement that we have in the United States as well?
Yeah, so from those list of issues, the one that struck me the most was the opposition to atomic energy here in Germany. Every single German I've talked to from all walks of life is extremely opposed, does not want to hear counter arguments. I find it really interesting, and we think this is a good example that the entire anti-atomic energy movement that led to the transition of Germany from atomic energy. We believe this movement was a really good example of what we discussed. We discussed informal political participation in our group. Formal political participation would consist of voting and being a party member. But informal political participation is what Nick was talking about earlier. That's when you engage in protest movements, share your beliefs on social media, engage in a grassroots movement for and against an issue. And so here in Germany, the movement against atomic energy was a really great example of informal political participation. Germans who may not otherwise be interested in politics really engaged against this issue. Especially, as Nick said, they really see the issue of atomic energy being stored unsafely as directly affecting them and their lives and their well-beings. That led to a really widespread, really unanimous grassroots movement that really had a lasting effect on politics. So that was a good example of informal political participation, we thought.
And to the topic of the building of power lines in Germany as part of the energy transition program, we kind of see that as a modern result of the Nein Danke Atomkraft movement. And that's really exciting because we saw that the effects of protesting against nuclear energy worked, and there were reactions. And so to give some context with the power lines, I met a lot of citizens as I was working in this field that felt that it was that having the power lines located near their homes was dangerous, and so thus they were protesting this and looking to explore other options, whether that would be more decentralized energy systems. And I think this really speaks to the power of the German political system, is that the people can see that their results in the past have had an impact and that their voices made a difference. And so similarly, when we see this perhaps negative reactions to the building of power lines, they are doing something about it.
Yeah, I would like to add something about the free trade agreement TTIP. There are different opinions in both countries about free trade agreements, and of course there are some people who are against free trade agreements, and that's what happened in both countries. I didn't mention at the beginning my major in studies is economics, and therefore in general I like free trade agreements because they're giving benefits for both countries. The thing is, every time when you make an agreement or a contract, it's important that everything in this contract is working well for both sides, and therefore it's a long process until you find the perfect agreement to work together. And I think that's the point what happens right now, and that's the point where there are lots of critics in Germany and also in the US. And most critics in Germany are mostly about there are different regulations on food, or how to solve different opinions, or like when the government decides something, what court decides what to do between different countries. I just would like to mention one experience I had one my time at the US Congress. Working for the Congressman Tom Cole, I had to attend on an event for cancer in the US Congress. And there were lots of different people from the US talking about what can cause cancer. And one very important point was in the European Union, around 14,000 ingredients in food are prohibited, while in the US just 10 of these ingredients are prohibited. And that's one of the major things that people in Germany criticize about free trade agreements, because they're afraid to get food with ingredients that are prohibited in their country over to Europe. My own opinion is I think a free trade agreement is very good and important, and I think it's good to work together and find out ways to solve these different opinions, different ingredients of food or whatever, and I think there are ways to solve it, and I think as a good result will be a free trade agreement to work together with both countries. But of course there are different opinions on both sides.
All right, thank you very much. If we have time at the end, there are obviously more questions that we could ask in such a broad and important topic. But now we're going to invite the second group up to do their presentation. This is the group on diversity and integration. So thank you very much.
Grüß Gott. Guten Tag to everyone here in Berlin, and guten Morgen to those of you in the American side. Welcome to the Diversity and Integration Group. My name is Franz Rivera. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, and I'm currently placed in the beautiful city of Munich.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, and I'm Caitlin Schmidt. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, back home in the States, and I'm currently placed in Bremen, Germany.
All right, I will go on. Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Bohlingen. I'm from Frankfurt in Germany, and I'm currently placed in Kansas City.
Hello, my name is Lev Duchenko. I'm from Düsseldorf in Germany, and I'm placed in Bluefield, West Virginia, and working now at the Bluefield State College.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Weber. I'm from the beautiful city Franz was talking about, Munich. Currently, I'm placed in the south of Illinois in Olney. It's a small community, and currently I'm working at the First National Bank. My business and my major is business.
Germany, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, you can go on.
All right. So I'd like to introduce you all to our theme of integration and diversity. This topic is understandably very complex, very broad, and it's really one that hinges upon the definition of both of these topics. We've really seen this between the Pegida movement here in Germany and then back home in the US, the Ferguson and Baltimore protests. It's really put our issue of how to properly define integration, what integration is, and how to really become a diverse society at the forefront of national discussion. The relevance of this topic recently has made it so much easier for us to discuss both within our group and within the broader community what these two things are, what integration is, what diversity is. And for us, because the definition of what integration is, what it really means to foster diversity, these things change based on cultural and personal backgrounds. Everyone has a different opinion on it. What's integrated for one person isn't integrated for another. And we felt that opening the discussion outside of our group was really the best way to engage with it, the best way to truly understand what we were talking about. And Lisa has a bit more about that with exactly how we chose to engage with this topic.
Thank you, Katie. So we basically had the idea to create a video because we had really good discussions just in our virtual exchanges, but we also wanted to know what like the people in our environment would say about diversity and integration. So we wanted really to expand those discussions beyond our group, and we wanted to create a video because also a video is something tangible, so it's something that we could show around even after our virtual exchange program had ended. So we kind of did like a micro project within our project, and we really did that to get like an honest and natural samplings of definitions. So what we did is we just went out to our surroundings. We asked like host families, and we asked our friends and colleagues and did interviews with them. And we did that in Germany and we did that in the US to get like really a broad overview. And yeah, we really quickly found out that it's like really a wide range of definitions and opinions. Like when we just compared like the definitions for integration, it was really interesting. So it started like from not fighting and killing each other to really working together and communicating together like as a community. So we were like, oh wow, that's like really broad and it's wide, and it really helped us to focus on our project and to learn more about our project, and it really helped us for our own discussions, to really go on with our own discussions. What do people think? And that was basically our micro project within our project. But unfortunately, we can't show our video today because of the technical things here. But yeah.
And working on the project brought us also a lot of positive things, but also challenges. And the positive things were that we had an open discussion, that we could also, we're Germans here in the United States, could exchange our experience with the Americans in Germany. And also during the interviews, it was interesting to hear the opinions and the views of the people who were interviewing, because they were very various and different. And also it encouraged us all to listen to the interviews, to listen to the solutions, and that was just great. But we also had some challenges, and the challenges were that not everyone we wanted to interview understand the big picture and wanted to be interviewed, because the people are different, and some people thought, I'm not really interested in interviewing. I didn't want to share with us their opinion. So, but all in all, it was very interesting, and Matt is telling us now about the about the experience.
Yeah, friends and I, we will talk about the virtual exchange experience, and I will start that. First, I would like to thank you, Culture Business and GIZ in Germany, that we were like the first year could talk about like those 4 topics, and it's very interesting like to talk about on both sides on the Atlantic about diversity and integration. And those 5 live sessions we had, we got new perspectives on both sides. I learned so much about Germany. Currently in America, but I learned so much, or we all learned about our own home countries so much, and about our host countries. It's just interesting to see how Americans see our home country and how we Germans see America in different ways. And it was so worth it to change our opinions and to review our opinions and to think about how we change our opinions, behaviors in the future. And so France will go on with more exchange experiences which we had.
Thank you, Matt. So what does this mean? I think that with the exchange experience, the virtual exchange experience, we were really able to see our own countries through more critical and constructive lenses than we previously had. We went beyond the national, political, and economic narratives of the United States and Germany, and instead focused on the personal. This gave us a chance to delve deeper into what it means to be German, or what it means to be Americans, through our own multiple stories, and that's very powerful. A very excellent example would actually be me and Matt, because he's from Munich, and I'm currently placed in Munich. We had many discussions about, things from where to go out to different organizations, and what happens in Munich, that I really came away with a stronger connection to the Munich community. And that's something that you don't get from just visiting another country for a year, but actually being integrated. And so, yeah, coming into a space where everyone was intentional about hearing our own experiences and each other's experiences and perspectives and worldviews made for enlightening, productive conversations. And I think that's a very important step when it comes to issues like diversity and integration. This virtual exchange platform has already shown a lot of great potential for something virtual to already become something real. And you're all excellent examples because we started a Facebook group. It was really interesting to see how people immediately jumped at the opportunity to say, hey, I'm from Los Angeles, let me know if you are going there, I could give you some tips. And likewise with the German participants who are saying, hey, I'm from Munich, like Matt, and tells us, let me know if you want to know more about my community. And because of this promising potential that we saw, we would really love for this virtual exchange to be expanded to the rest of our participants. And it's shown us our project is very valuable because it encourages us to share our stories, backgrounds, perspectives, and it also encouraged us to really widen and deepen our understanding of ourselves and of each other's countries. This virtual exchange experience, not only for the diversity integration group, but also for the political civic participation group, has been really, really valuable because it encouraged people-to-people interactions, which is crucial for our transatlantic relation and our future as we seek to navigate increasingly multicultural and diverse societies. Thank you.
We have some questions for this group as well. Hopefully we can get through them. The first is more of a personal question, which is you've spent either a year in Germany or the United States, and I'm interested to hear how you feel the experience of being a foreigner has been. What were your actual experiences, your interactions with average Americans or average Germans?
I want to go with this question. Of course, at the beginning, it was just really uncomfortable. Like when you get thrown out of your comfort zone, it's just not nice. You don't really necessarily, you don't speak the language that well. You don't know the people. You don't know the environment. You don't know anything. So everything is just new and it's just overwhelming. But still, it was really, really welcoming for us Germans to come to the US because everybody is just friendly and really welcoming. They they hear your accent and they're like, wow, where are you from? What are you doing? Are you from Germany? I've been to Germany. You know, my great-great-grandfather, he went to Germany. He lived there, and he's from Germany, actually. So we hear a lot of great stories, like, all the time. Like 99% of my personal experience were like, hey, yeah, I'm actually also from Germany, you know? Great-great-great-grandfather from Germany. So that's, like, usually the experience that we have here in the US. And I think also, like, for the Americans, maybe kind of similar. And it's like, after, like, time, when time goes by, like in an exchange year, you really learn how people talk, like the subtleties, the way Americans talk. For us now, it's like, or the Germans talk, it's like, yeah, we understand you. We really understand your way, the way you see things so much better. Like, when we came to the US, they were like just stereotypes and stuff. But now it's like, really, it's getting so clear, and you understand the people. And I think for all of us, it was really a great experience here. You just grow, you just learn so many new things, and you have so many great experiences. Of course, there are, like, also bad experiences. Like, I'd like to share, like, a bad experience that I just had, like, 3 weeks ago. I was really sick, and I went to the pharmacy with my host dad, and I talked to the lady behind the counter, and I needed some medicine. And once she figured out that I have an accent, she would just stop talking to me. She just talked to my host dad, and I was just standing there and being like, alrighty, thank you. And it was really frustrating to me, but I mean, it's just, you would find people like that all over the world, I guess. And it's just an experience, and you just have to learn how to cope with it. But on the other hand, we had so many great other experiences. Like, when I just remember, like, maybe the greatest, we went to Albuquerque, and we were sitting in a restaurant, and my friends and I, we were just having a loud discussions about the upcoming balloon fiesta, a balloon festival in Albuquerque. And there was, like, an older couple sitting next to us. And they just joined our discussions. They just joined us, and they just helped us a lot with how to get there and whatever. And they wanted to know where we are from, what we are doing, of course, the normal things. But they were so friendly. We couldn't believe that. And like, when we were done with all the conversations and we were about to leave, they even paid for our food, and we were like, how generous are you? You know, that's so crazy. We've never experienced something like that. And also, Lev and I, we had a really great experience when we were traveling, that people were just so generous to us. And it's like, there are good experiences, a lot of good experiences, but also some bad experiences. And yeah, I would just say, like, I think we have proven that we can really live, study, and work in the US or in Germany, and that we really can participate and contribute to our community, and that we're really a part of the society, almost. But yeah, we really enjoyed our years here.
And maybe somebody in Berlin?
Yeah, I definitely think I definitely agree with everything that Lisa was saying. You know, like, little subtleties with how people talk in Germany. Obviously, our German has gotten a lot better, and it's really cool. You know, sometimes I'm in the train station and I'm just like, oh my God, I can understand what people are saying. But it's I think, if anything, this year has shown us that. Going back to the topic of diversity and integration, is that it takes time to integrate. It takes time for people to get used to diverse backgrounds, but I think you have to be willing to put yourself outside of the comfort zone, your own comfort zone, and then the society in which you are integrating, they also have a part to play in it, you know? Because sometimes it can turn into difficult experiences, like what Lisa was saying. But I think we all stand here as examples of integration at its finest, I think.
All right, we'll open up the floor to questions from the audiences in both Berlin and Washington, D.C. for a few minutes. Anyone?
Good morning, Berlin and Washington. My name is Carolina Solms. I work for the Robert Bosch Foundation Fellowship Program at Cultural Vistas. And I have two questions. My first question is your movie available to be seen online, perhaps, or otherwise? It will be available. It will be available. Okay, great. I'd love to see that whenever it's ready. And my second question is, now obviously you all heard a lot of different perspectives on diversity and integration, but in your opinion, is there a key difference between the German perspective and the American perspective when it comes to understanding of those two terms?
Thank you. I think if you're just in general, if you're open-minded, and if you just, as Fran said, if you're willing to get involved in the community, and I think the community service was such a good thing for us and for the German or the American participants in Germany too, and to learn the language, and that you can communicate with the native community and the people overseas. I think there's in every country, in America and Germany, you can integrate, and I think there are maybe different point of views, but as I said, if you take advantage of every people you meet at the train station, at the bar, and just to talk to them and just introduce you to them, maybe you get friends with them, and just, yeah, I think it's just do it. And I don't know, maybe Franz and Katie can add something to this question.
Could you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. Say, is there a different understanding of diversity?
Exactly. So the question was, in your opinion, based on your experience, is there a different understanding of integration and diversity from the German perspective compared to the American perspective in your case, Berlin?
Well, I can speak to the people that I interviewed. So I interviewed my boss, I interviewed my host mom, and I interviewed a really good friend of mine. And for the most part, I feel like there wasn't a big difference, at least from what I think is embracing diversity and really like helping people integrate. I think the differences are very subtle, and it has to do with how much the Native community has to do in order to allow people to foster integration. And so whether that means, you know, like if people want to get involved in, for example, going to a mosque to understand what Islam is. You know, like people have different thresholds of what they want to do and what makes them feel uncomfortable and comfortable. But for the most part, every single person I interviewed has told me that they want a diverse culture. They want diverse people because every diverse backgrounds are interesting. And they really said that they would be interested to see this project actually grow into something bigger, because they think that we as Americans bring different perspectives to Germany. So does that make sense? I hope that answers your question.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Is there a question from the audience in Berlin for either group?
Good afternoon or good morning, DC. My name is Anna Schmidt. I'm a law student of Humboldt University in Berlin. And in 2008, 2009, I was a CB student in Lexington, Virginia. First of all, thank you very much for those really interesting presentations. I actually have a question concerning the progress, so the making of your project. How did you perceive working online? Were there some obstacles to overcome? Yes, that was my question. Thank you.
Well, I would say that on basic level, one of the biggest difficulties we had was coordinating our schedules, which is part of the issue with any sort of transatlantic topic. That would probably be the biggest difficulty for us when we're trying to speak at, what was it, usually 7 p.m. and our German counterparts are in the middle of their lunch break. But outside of the scheduling things, I think that the online forums worked very well. We went from Google Hangouts to Skype chats to WhatsApp groups, and there's so many different ways that we can communicate with each other now. It's really helps us to get these perspectives, get this broader opinion. Would you guys agree with that, that it was outside of scheduling fairly easy to coordinate?
I actually have a pretty funny story to tell. So I think it was the second or third session that we had. I had just got out of work. It was 6 p.m. And there was a time change already. And so I thought I had a whole hour before our virtual forum started. But I was sitting in the U-Bahn, and all of a sudden I get an email from someone from Culture Vista saying, "Hey, Franz, feel free to join us anytime now." So definitely the time change, the time difference posed a very difficult obstacle. But also we are all currently in our internship phase, which made it more difficult for us, I think, because we had to work. But definitely telecommunications today has made it a lot easier for something virtual like this to actually become like a real project. And I think that's really, really cool. But yeah, what do you think on the American side?
Yeah, I think we just can agree that the time schedule is like the biggest obstacle. Like for us, it was always like for me, for example, yeah, it was the lunch break, and I always went to the next pub next door from my bank, and they were thinking, "Man, why you always at the pub?" I said, it's the next spot where they have Wi-Fi, so. But as Franz said, yeah, the communication skills, or the how we talk to each other through so many ways. It just was good.
All right, I think we are out of time, so I want to thank everybody for participating in this wonderful exchange. And before I hand the mic back to Rob, I just want to mention one thing. I was a senior in high school when the Berlin Wall fell, and I was in college then when Germany reunified, and of course we have the 25th anniversary of that later this year. And there were a whole bunch of people who were interested in Germany because of these world historical events, and I think we're the people that are, running things like this today. But it really makes me happy to know that there are such engaged youngsters, both in Germany and the United States, that will kind of take the transatlantic relationship forward for the next generation. So believe me, we'll be watching you and hoping that you will continue this kind of bedrock of world security. So thank you very much.
Another round of applause. I think, as we saw, this was just really great. All 10 of you did just a fabulous job bringing together these ideas, giving us a glimpse today of the exchange that you were having online. And I wanted to draw a little bit more on what you just said, Eric. I was an exchange student when I was 17 in 1987 and 89 before the Berlin Wall fell. And touching on the fact that we now have all of these virtual abilities to communicate. At that time, I remember we still had to write letters. And I wrote a letter home, and it would take a week until it got back to communicate with my friends and family back home. And I then had to wait another week until the information came back to me. And it's just, again, amazing to see how in 25 years things have developed, and how through an exchange like this, not only are you all having the ability to have a dialogue with your counterparts on the program to exchange ideas, which is what I was trying to do through my letters with my family and friends back home, but through these kinds of tools, your friends and family are able to live your experience at the same time while you're doing it. So I think this is really exciting. I think you heard from the participants. We always knew there were going to be some challenges with this, and I think we should give ourselves a big round of applause that it actually worked for our full hour here. We were all very nervous about it. But we're really looking forward to expanding this in the future. As a number of the participants said, this was meant to be a pilot project to see what worked well, what did we need to tweak a little bit. But again, I think you heard there was a lot of opportunity for not only intercultural learning for the participants themselves to learn about their home country, their host country that they're in, but really one of our also purposes with the program was to create a network between the participants. So it is going to be very important that we start to develop this and expand it further so that more of the participants have this great opportunity. And I think as we heard, the German-American partnership is truly one of the most strategic partnerships that our country here has today. And it's programs like CBYX that are bringing together the next generation that are going to continue to build this. So we're excited that we have components like this, that we have this program, that we know it's going to continue in the future. Look forward to having you as part of that discussion as we move forward. Again, I want to thank everybody from participating. Before I turn it back to Berlin, thank all of my colleagues at Cultural Vistas, Beth Uding, Jessica, Katie, Mike, who did all the IT work here. I know this was a lot of work organizing it all. To Eric and Park at AICGS, again, you did a wonderful job helping us get all the content and the material together. We really couldn't have done it without you. So again, thanks to all of you, and besten Dank aus Washington und zurück nach Berlin.
So here's Berlin again. I told in the beginning that we have representatives from the Bundestag with us, and we don't want to leave without giving them the chance to reflect a bit on this new project, which, by the way, was supported on both sides, by the embassy, but also by the Bundestag itself. And thanks for that. In this moment, I think we should give you all an applause for the support. And next, I would like to give Michael Reinhold the chance to turn in some of his perspectives on this project.
Thank you, Theo. Hi, Rob, can you hear me?
We can. Loud and clear.
It's very nice to see you, and I'm deeply impressed. It was very, very interesting. Well, I'm not only a member of the Bundestag staff administration, I'm also a political scientist, and you discussed a lot of very interesting topics, and it was very, very interesting. And I really appreciate your presence in Washington. For you, it's early in the morning, so you did a great job. For us, it's tea time now, but it was great to see you. And I'm really impressed by the technical new possibilities we have. Well, perhaps you can see I'm much older than the CBYX program. And when I grew up, television was black and white, no colors. And today we have a program or a forum like this. And this shows that CBYX is old. And sorry, Rob, and sorry, Theo, and the staff is old too. But the program is not old-fashioned. It's a very modern program. Sorry, Rob. It's a very modern program. And this forum is a very new, dimension of exchange. As Rob and Theo mentioned, in the recent years, we had only, the Germans made their experiences in the US and the Americans here in Germany. And but till today, we had no real connection between the Germans and the Americans. And this is a new dimension now we have. And I think this is a very good start to develop this project a little bit further. And I think this was very, very interesting. And I think it's only possible because we have these new technologies. And this morning I was very curious, will it work, and are there technical problems? But I think it worked, and I think it's a good start. And the second, I think, most important thing is, it was, we heard a lot of interesting things, some funny stories, but it showed that it showed a political aspect of the program. It's not only you tell funny stories and tips where to go to a party to Munich or to Los Angeles. It's a political program. You discuss political aspects, and that's the idea of the CBYX program, the political demand. And we have a lot of exchange programs between the United States and Germany, but we have only a program like CBYX. The political demand makes it unique, and I think this is very, very important. Well, you were all, the participants, young ambassadors here in Germany or in the United States, and I learned you are real political or political scientists, experts, and that's the idea behind the program, that the German-American relationship, and Rob, you mentioned it before, is not only a job for politicians or for professional diplomats. It's a real it's a matter for all of us. It's a job for all of us. And I think you did a very great job today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Michael Reinhold, for adding those perspectives. And I think this is what this project was about. So I will not add another perspective from my side. I'd like to end this session, this pilot project, with a little story that I read a few days. For some reason, I got interested in one of the most prominent jazz pianists of the 70s and 80s. Is called Keith Jarrett. I got interested in one of his most prominent concerts that he played once in Cologne, so my hometown, so to speak. I don't know if every one of you ever heard about the Cologne concert or the Köln concert. If not, have a search and listening to it. Anyway, obviously the circumstances of this concert had been a nightmare for Keith and anyone involved. He almost didn't make it to Cologne that evening, and so he had no chance to practice, and the piano that was ordered wasn't there, so he had to use another piano, and it turned out during the concert that the piano was damaged. He couldn't use the pedal, he couldn't use some of the keys, so all in all, it was a real nightmare. But it turned out to be one of the most historic and revolutionizing jazz concerts ever played. That say, not me, but some of the jazz historians. So why do I tell the story? I don't know whether this event here can be called historic or revolutionizing, but certainly thinking about what happened during the last couple of days and weeks in getting prepared for this, it certainly reminded me of some of the things that happened to Keith in the past. So I'm very glad that this event turned out well. And I appreciate very much the support and help of anyone who was involved in getting this event happening. So my thanks go, first of all, of course, to our participants, U5 here in Berlin and U5 over there in DC. You are pioneers, CBYX virtual pioneers, and hopefully there will be more of you later on. So thanks again for your commitment, and a big applause for you from here. And I just quick note, thanks also to my colleagues here at the GIZ Repräsentanz, and a special thank you for our ex-IT folks here in Berlin, and back to you in DC with Mike Hoffman and anyone who was involved there as well. Did a great job. Wasn't easy, but I think it turned out in the end very well. So big applause to you as well. Thank you guys over in DC, Cultural Vistas, Rob, Beth, and your teams did a great job, not only in preparing this event, but preparing and being committed to the project overall over the last couple of months. And last, my thanks to Steffi and my team as well, making it happen. That's it then from my side. Rob, anything else to add?
Just real quick, I just want to say thanks, Teo. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week. The Americans are all there for their evaluation. I know they're doing the Berlin Tag. I'm going to be meeting with members of the Bundestag. I hope it all goes well. And also just wanted to make one final comment. We are going to be posting the projects that they've all been working on eventually, the video that was mentioned. All of that's going to be online. We've, in fact, recorded this entire session, so we'll be doing excerpts of that because we really do want to ensure that others are getting an opportunity to hear about some of the lessons learned. So again, hats off to everybody. Thank you very much und ein schönes Tag noch. Auf Wiedersehen.